Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Dewey, Dailey, along with John Bruce. Glad to have you with us. Episode 32 of the show. Got some individual performances, team performances, some game reviews, and some game previews of the upcoming week. A relatively stacked week for us. A pretty impressive previous week for us as well. So we're going to talk about all of that here today.
Yeah, this might be our episode with the most to actually, talk about without any, putting out some extra stuff. Like we've gotten a lot of information from a lot of different places, which is good because then we can hit on a lot of different individuals here this week. I'm excited for it.
Yep. As always, we'll start with the boys, individuals, and then we kind of have a segment with team reviews and game reviews, and then we usually wrap it up with game previews. We'll start with boys, girls come second, and then want to go down below, check out any timestamps, see something you like that we're going to talk about. You can just tap on the little blue time mark, and it'll take you right to it. Makes it a lot easier if you only want to see one thing, one player, one team, whatever it is. So
ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, with that, I think we'll jump right into it. We've talked about him a couple times. Garrett Brown for Vinton County. Pretty impressive season thus far for the Vikings. I don't remember how many wins, but I believe only 2 losses on the season. I think they're 9-2.
Either 9-2 or 10-2.
Something to that effect. 28 points for Brown in the win over New Hope. He's now over 1,000 points in his career. Now, outside of Brown, for Vinton County, I feel like they've kind of had, it's been a very successful season, but especially in the TVC as they're still undefeated, but they're too. Well, the loss to Chillicothe was a little odd.
Yes.
And then losing to South Webster. I mean, whatever. Pretty much outside of
most teams are going to do that.
If you're not Wheelersburg or Minford, you've lost to South Webster if you've played them. And then the double overtime win at McLean was a little odd as well. And they ended up winning, so, whatever, but it was 74-69 in double overtime over McLean. They have Federal Hocking and Meigs this week. First time, obviously, against Fed Hock, as they're not on the same side of the TVC. And then their second time against Meigs, who they beat by 10 in their first meeting. So, I don't know.
I think they got to figure some stuff out this week. They have an excellent point guard in Cobra Sharp, obviously with Garrett Brown. I like Ashton Allman inside. They've got some nice pieces, but starting with that Chillicothe game, it's kind of not been as.
But then early on, they beat what was a healthy Zane Trace team, so it's kind of been a weird year.
So I feel like maybe they have some lingering issues over the last couple weeks, but. They got to figure him out pretty quick because Fed Hock Andrew Earhart hit his 1,000th point on Saturday in their game against South Webster. I don't know if Tariq Cottrell is going to play though. That's the big one for Fed Hock because he can go get a basket pretty much any time. But at Meigs is 10-2. They have not lost since that Vinton County game. So they've been rolling. So that's going to be the big one in the TVC because really it's those two at the top, and that's pretty much. Vinton County wins that, they're going to be TVC champions by themselves. If not, it's a pretty good chance that they're going to split.
I was going to ask if that second loss for Meigs was also in the league, but I see it was not. It was, it was to Gallia early on, which is also for a 10-3 or 10-2 team is a little odd, as I think Gallia is
only
sub 500, 4-9.
Yeah.
So, but that was also their first game of the season. So
I don't know how good Meigs is. I saw them over the summer.
They're 10-2.
Yeah, so. I was gonna say I saw them over the summer, and they had some nice pieces. So and Meigs always has pretty good athletes, but they seem to not turn that over onto the field into wins. So it's nice for them to be able to get 10 wins to start. So that should be a big game over there on Friday. I wish that was over at Vinton County.
Yeah, that may have been a destination for us this week, but Pomeroy's a little bit further away. But 70-60 win for the Vikings in their first meeting at home. Got to travel to Pomeroy this time to pick up their second win against the Marauders this season. Now moving on, we'll talk about Maddox Kazee for the Chesapeake Panthers, only a freshman, but had 19 points in the Panthers win over a pretty solid Fairland team. I've said it a lot. I was like, man, Chesapeake is this under the radar team. I don't really think they're under the radar anymore. They're tied for third in the OVC. They're tied with Portsmouth and Fairland. Obviously, they beat Fairland. I don't remember the score with Portsmouth.
I'm pulling it up right now.
But, I mean, there's 8-4
overall.
Correct. 8-4 overall, 4-2 in the OVC. The OVC is extremely tight right now, as the two teams on the top are South Point and Ironton, both at 5-1.
They beat Portsmouth 61-53 and Fairland 72-62.
Well, yeah, I was going to say I knew that because I knew their two league losses were to Ironton and South Point, the two teams that are above them. I think they lost to Ironton by like 8. It was a decent...
12, 53-41.
By 12. I knew they lost to South Point 48-47.
They also lost to Megs.
Lost to Megs?
Yeah.
Who lost?
That's Meg's best win. Right. I know that.
Yeah.
But they lost North Adams on Saturday over at North Adams. It may have been because that game didn't start until almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we were... because
they might have to drop a game next year because that's so many games.
Because on Saturday, obviously, we had the Circleville Amanda game over at Circleville. We went to Roosters after, and it's like 10:45, and the halftime score rolled in. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man!
Yeah.
Like 10:30, and it's halftime, and we're sitting here eating. Like we had been done with our game for almost an hour, and that one was just getting into halftime. But I mean, anytime you try to squeeze 8 games into one day, that it's not going to be easy.
Even with starting at 9, and big time shout out to good guys for doing all of those games, because you go back and check at any time and there was you could still see it was still on, and I don't know if it was the same too. If it was, even more kudos to them, because that's a lot. Like, yeah, that's just really impressive. But like this Chesapeake team, they're very young. I mean, they beat Adena at Adena to start the year, which Adena didn't have a great start, but they've won 7 straight. So I mean, that's a pretty good win. Danny Maynard runs the show for him. He's the point guard. He can do a little bit of everything. Can shoot it. Can really drive, and does a really good job of finding teammates. Philip Thacker's another one to go along with Kazee. I mean, it's just they have 12 guys listed on their roster, and I'm pretty sure all 12 play. And it's like just waves of guys coming at you, and they're a really hard team to play against. So, it's a really good start, especially for a freshman.
Yeah, they take down Fairland 72-62, that being the game that Kazee dropped 19. Once again, just a freshman for the Panthers. I will say that the 16-point loss to a fellow Division III team might be a little concerning when you start to look towards the tournament. I know we're probably right around the halfway point of the season, maybe a little bit over as teams start to play their 12th, 13th, and 14th games of the season. Obviously, for Chesapeake, they're at 12. So, I mean, you're probably only going to play 20-ish games in the regular season. So they're probably inching into the third quarter of their season. They have Colgrove on Friday. That's at home. Colgrove has kind of been one of those teams that, like, the record's not great, but at the same time, they've had some really tight losses. Who was it? Ironton they only lost to in like double overtime by 2 or something.
Yeah,
something odd like that.
And they went down south and played like in a really good tournament down. Like, so they've had a not good start, but they're a team that you don't want to. They're going to be a team that's going to come in with like a 20 seed in the Division III tournament, and you're not going to be happy with it.
Right. And then also for Chesapeake, we'll probably mention these games next week, but rematches with Ironton and South Point next week, which probably about as big of an implication on both of those games as they could have when you look at who's going to end up winning the OVC, because it goes back to us saying whoever wins the OVC could end up having like 3 losses, because I think last year... I can't remember what conference it was.
I think it was.
Was it the OVC?
They had 3. No, it was the MSL Buckeye Girls.
Yeah.
They had...
Taze had...
Individual winner had 3 losses.
Yeah. I think, right now they're tied with 1 apiece for South Point and Ironton. So, obviously one of those is going to end up with 2. And let's say South Point beats Ironton. Wouldn't surprise me if South Point loses to, Fairland or Chesapeake. It's a very contested league right now, and I think it's going to be crazy in the tournament, because you're pretty high chance one of these OVC teams, I think we've kind of established there's like 5 that are towards the top. Pretty good chance two of those 5, maybe even more, probably going to play each other for a third time in the tournament. So it should be exciting once we get to that point.
Very good, very deep league. And then going to, maybe technically our biggest league, school size wise, which is the FAC, Isaiah Haithcock from Washington Courthouse, in a 65-52 win over Hillsborough, had 18 points and 19 rebounds. Like, that's such an absurd game for. And when we saw them over at Unioto, he had a really big game as well. So he can knock down the jump shots, but he's also so long and athletic that he's a really difficult matchup. They are 10-2 overall, and like we talked about the other day, they put out something. Like, they're down 3 games. Like, they got to make up.
Yeah.
They got to find games to play. I don't understand how you get that far down, but they still got some games to make up. So right now, it's looking like they don't have that many games left on their schedule. I mean, just pulling up.
Well, it definitely doesn't make it easy when you're only going to play 10 league games a year, because it's one of the smaller leagues. And outside, I think both of the Shacks have 6, but they also play the other side once. It ends up being whatever that would be. Like,
so you're trying to find 12 non-league games, and it just makes it a little more difficult. And so they are at Jackson on Friday. They did beat them by 18 at home. Garrett Rickman went crazy that game. I think he had 25 plus in it. And, with John Wall, they have some really nice pieces over there at Courthouse. Like we mentioned, they're 10-2. Only league loss was the Miami Trace, and they don't play them again until in February. Yeah, and then the other loss was to a really good Bishop Reedy team. And, this is a team that they are, they're deep, they're talented. They've got a lot of seniors on that team, but right now only 19 games on the schedule. Hopefully they can pick up at least another couple. Might have to go across the river to do so.
It might be maybe a 2-hour plus trip for that. But like, the one thing I will say for Courthouse, as impressive as they've been, and it goes back to just how crazy the FAC has been this year, like the loss to Miami Trace by 15 is just crazy.
Yeah,
like if they lost by 1 or 2, I mean, it was at Miami Trace, whatever. I mean, Jackson lost at Miami Trace by close to that, 10 or 15. But just, I don't know. I don't. If I looked at Courthouse at the beginning of the season, I would have probably told you, outside of, I don't know, maybe Minford or like South Webster or a Wheelersburg, and they're not really going to play any of those teams because they're D2 and like an hour and a half away. I wouldn't think there was anybody in our area besides that non-Columbus that would like beat Washington Courthouse by 15.
Right.
You just wouldn't think that. And I don't know. Yeah, like it just does. Like you told me the other day, like you can't look at common opponents because if you do, it's like, well, Unioto beat Miami Trace by 14 or whatever, and then Trace beats Courthouse by 15. So you're like, man, Unioto's about to beat these dudes by 20.
Right.
And Courthouse wins by what, 8? So it's just been a very odd year. It's been a very matchup reliant year.
So it's. Some years, like I'll just say, like Waverly 2 years ago, that you knew they were going to beat
everybody,
and
besides Upper Arlington.
Yeah, now it feels like even with like a South Point that we saw the other day, that's very good, and they have 4 losses. So I mean, it
makes no sense.
It comes down to I think that there's not as many like elite teams. I think there's a lot of good teams, and with there being a lot of good teams, you're going to see a lot of kind of strange results at times. So
it takes us back to Portsmouth beating Ironton by 30, and then and then Ironton beat South Point, didn't they? Oh no, Fairland beat South Point. I didn't realize that. South Point and Ironton haven't played yet.
Nope, I was going to talk about that next.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next because junior Brayden Schreck from Ironton just hit his 1,000th career point on Sunday in a 61-43 win over Bexley. That was a weird week.
AKA the like orange Detroit Lions. No, are
they
blue?
They're blue. They're the Detroit Lions, yeah. So they start off their week with a 67-37 home loss to Portsmouth. Just got absolutely annihilated. Then they beat Gaia at Gaia by 29, and then they play Bexley in a showcase and beat them by 18. And it's just like, it's a team that kind of, you don't know what you're going to get. But they have a huge one this week as they play South Point at South Point on Friday. Yeah. That'll be for first place in the OVC as they both have one league loss. And like you said, the winner could have 3. So, I mean, it's not a do or die game because, you're at least tied at this point. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very good team with Ironton. They're still pretty young. I mean, Schreck and Sean Terry, both juniors. Ashton Lane is only a freshman, and he's very good.
I will say, though, like, depending on what Sean Terry does with football,
right,
probably won't see him play basketball next year, depending on if there's already a commitment, which I would assume there probably will be.
He just got offered by Kentucky today.
So, I mean, I saw that. I thought he saw something about Notre Dame, maybe.
He was at Notre Dame this weekend, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. Like, personally, I mean, I can't exactly speak from experience, but, like, if I was a Division I athlete, and, like, let's just say I got an offer to play baseball somewhere, like, I would not play football that next season.
Right.
Like, now it's a little different because football is a little more violent than baseball. So, but, I mean, I don't know. There are a lot of non-contact injuries in basketball.
Well, a few years ago, Ironton had a really good team with a bunch of juniors, and then one of them didn't play the next year because it was Reed Carrico. He enrolled early at Ohio State, and I'm like, they might have been able to win a district with him. But instead they ended up not being as good because I mean, he had to go. And, sometimes and especially now with NIL, like if you got money coming in that, hey, you're going to get money
especially
to go play. Hey,
I'm racks.
Yeah. I'm going to go graduate early and go get some of this.
Racks money.
Yeah.
What was it? Reed Sachs Racks or something?
Yeah. Reed Sachs Racks. I don't know if it's still up.
I mean,
it might still be up for now.
Yeah. But. I don't know. Maybe there were racks down by.
And West
there used to be
Virginia.
one in Chillicothe, is where White Castle is, or
yes,
Casa del Taco.
No, Casa's been there for a long time.
So
I think it's
White Castle.
I think it's White Castle.
Because I remember they were like when I was younger, they were the only restaurant that had a TV inside. So like we would just go there and tear it up, and I'd watch TV. But
there's still a Racks in Lancaster.
And Circleville, obviously.
And Circleville has that one back, which is funny because it is not in the same spot as it was. It's
really?
like 2 buildings down.
Well, it's kind of like in the weird part of Circleville. It's like
that you don't think to stop.
yeah, because it's not around everything else. It's like that first, because it's in between the Loves and Pilot, and then like the meat of, and there's just like that weird. I think there's like it's not a GameStop, but it's some like video game stores there, and
Game On maybe.
Yeah,
but,
something like that.
They used to have one of those skill games things where you would just sit there and just punch. Like, it wasn't really skill. It was like pure luck if you were able to win. It was like the slot machines before slot machines were legal. But, yeah, getting back to racks, I guess. I don't know. Getting back to, our topic, we got Kenny Fowler from Portsmouth Clay. 31 points in a 53-50 win over Circleville East. I believe that was on Friday. They barely lost on Saturday to West Union. How about West Union too? Up to 3 wins now in the year. So, second win in 3 seasons for the Panthers. It's just, for a school that's not very big, you gotta, sometimes
Is it their second win in 3 seasons?
Or in the last 2.
Second win in 2 seasons.
Yeah, because they went winless last year, and they didn't.
They won
in
the year before.
Yeah, in January of that year. Yeah, so it's nice for them because those kids are going to work really hard. I think they have a chance to pick up another one because like you have listed down here for this week, they got Ironton St. Joe on Friday, and then Huntington on Saturday. Both teams under 500. Both teams, similar record wise, maybe the Panthers can get another one
over Ironton St.
Yeah. I don't get it.
I don't either. I thought it was like a different school, and then I was like, oh,
no, I think it's supposed to be an insult, but it's not a funny one.
Like I just wish I understood it, so I could decide if it was funny or not. But
it's not.
But I just don't even understand the joke.
Fun fact about St. Jude's: Danny Thomas, the founder, is from Youngstown.
Penguins.
Yeah,
nice.
Let's go.
Nice.
And his daughter was that girl, Marlo Thomas, who pretty much runs it now. Yeah, some good people down there in Memphis. Yeah, It'd be nice if it was in Ohio, but I understand that. But yeah, so congratulations to Clay. Get another win, and hopefully they can build off of this into the future to get better. Because I mean, once again, like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, it wasn't that long ago that they played in the regional championship game. So I mean,
I will say, like with Loper on their team last year, I'm surprised they didn't at least squeak out one win. We talked about how he's inching towards scoring 1,000 points, and I don't know. I just figured he would have got hot for like a 30 or 40 piece, similar to what Fowler did. And they just squeak one out.
I watched them last year against West Union, and it was I think they lost by 3. Then it was that super early game last year too, and it was just like when I watched those two teams, they won a combined 1 game last year, and I'm like watching them, I'm like, they're not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, not what you would expect, I think. So I think it's just when you're not used to winning, it's just putting wins away is really difficult. Changing that culture is really difficult, and even with Loper and Fowler last year, because I liked what I saw out of Fowler last year. I thought, man, they had a chance to win a few this year, and then when Loper left, I was like, oh, that's probably not great. But hey, they've won 2 so far. Let's keep it up. Win a couple more.
Who was their first win over? Was it non-league? Obviously, this is a SOC 1 win when you take down one of the many small Portsmouth schools.
Yeah.
Who should probably just... I will say, like, Clay has one of the coolest looking schools on the outside at night. I mean, that place looks sweet.
Yeah, it's, when we drive by it, I'm like, man, that's a good looking school.
Yeah, and it's, like, relatively big for how small they seemingly are in terms of, like, students.
They beat Oak Hill. So they beat a bigger school then. So this week, like you mentioned, they got Ironton St. Joe, then they got Huntington. I mean, you got Glenwood coming up, Green, St. Joe again, Wellston, Glenwood. I mean, those are games, like, I could see them getting a couple more in there.
All right, so we'll move on to our team and game review section. First one, I think now our most viewed regular season game in like the last 2 seasons.
Since Trey Robertson played.
Yeah. Minford and South Webster this past Tuesday. Falcons take it 58-55 to remain one of 2 undefeated in league play teams in the newly formed SOC 3. Just them and Wheelersburg, who meet up this Friday. We'll talk about. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But Miles Montgomery drops a 20-piece. Bennett Kazee adds a double-double with 14 and 10. Jackson Shoemaker and Jeff Pika both got hot from beyond the arc. And, I mean, I don't know. I will say South Webster battled back to, and we've said it a couple times, technically a 3-point game, but like really probably 6 as Summer hit that 3 at the horn to cut it from 6 to 3. But, I mean, Minford did not make it easy on South Webster to keep up. But, I mean, and it got up to as much as, like 12 or 13?
I think 12 was the biggest it was.
And, I mean, South Webster came back. Tyler Summer did a great job. And Jack Timothy, although it didn't seem like he played a ton in the second half, and the first half was kind of one of their bright spots.
Right.
And then, Eli Roberts did what he usually does. But, he didn't seem like he really got... Like, I can't speak for the entire first half, but it seemed like the first quarter was sort of slow for him. But in the second half, he really came alive. Hit that one crazy, like, post fade 3 from the left wing. So
yeah, he only scored, I believe, 4 in the first half. He didn't score in the second. So yeah, he came on late. I mean, there was the bad foul when he was shooting the tough 3 and he hit all 3 free throws. Ends up with a double-double on the night. And really, for South Point, that was their second straight loss.
South Webster,
that was their second straight loss. I just saw South Point as our next thing on our thing that we're talking about. It was their second straight loss, and then they go to Waverly and beat them 58-46 on Friday, and then on Saturday they went to Federal Hockey and beat them 63-47. So, I mean, it was a good bounce back for them. This week is not a whole lot easier because they are, they get West on Friday.
Just played Minford
to a 2-point game.
Extremely and sort of surprisingly close.
Yeah, it was a 54-52 game that Minford won there. And then on Saturday, they are at North Adams. So, yeah.
I think Webster wins both of those. I mean,
that's a tough matchup for North Adams, size-wise.
well, I mean, and I know you say never look at common opponents, but I mean, I feel like Minford and Webster, like, in terms of play, like the players they have are relatively similar. Like in terms of height and everything. I think Webster maybe a little bit more height, which doesn't help North Adams very much. But like, I mean, you have Minford who beat North Adams by what, 15, 16, 17. So I think South Webster wins both of those, and I think that'll be a big win for them. I still think in our area Webster is the best Division IV team.
Yes.
I mean, Notre Dame is there as well.
Well, and Fairfield, but
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting Fairfield is Division IV, not Division III, just because I don't know. I can never remember which teams are on which side of the shack, but I know Fairfield is undefeated at 13-0. But like I said, I still think South Webster is our best Division IV team.
So this is the only thing I'll say on the Fairfield being 13-0 on the.
And we'll talk a little bit more about them here in a second.
Yeah, the Martin RPI site that lists strength of schedule throughout the state, they were like second worst strength of schedule. So it's just they haven't played a very good schedule yet. It's just just kind of how it is. But when it comes to the Falcons, another good win. Yeah. They escape west. I mean, the west side is never easy to come out of there with a win. They do it 54-52 on Friday. This week, not any easier because they've got Portsmouth at home on Tuesday.
I'll be interested to see that.
Yeah, because Portsmouth bounced back. They did not play well against South Point, which we'll talk about.
Well, free throws killed them early, and then I'm not a coach, and obviously I didn't play varsity basketball, but I don't see how you can allow the reigning player of the year to just catch and shoot corner threes
in the same spot.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was
easier said than done, but I'd say
there were two where he just caught it and no one was
there
him.
And there were a couple like heavily contested ones that he put in, but I don't know. I'd say that was one of his easier 20-plus point games he's had in his career thus far.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how Portsmouth does against another really good team in Minford. So they bounce back. They beat Lyndon McKinley, who's
did they?
Yeah, they came in with a 7-4 record. So I mean, they beat a team over 500 coming out of the Columbus City League that's going to play a little different style. They beat them, and then how will they do? At Minford. And then on Friday, the big one at Wheelersburg, which, like you mentioned, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
All right, so we'll talk about the Pointers. Just mentioned them for a moment. Caleb Lovely and company with a win over Portsmouth. With Ironton, they're the only two remaining OVC teams that are that have one loss in league play. South Point and Ironton meeting up this week. We just said it. What? It was the 19th,
Friday.
wasn't it? Yeah, Friday. So that we're not going to preview that game, so I guess we can sort of talk about it right now. I'm taking the Pointers. Bottom line, I know they're, and we haven't said it on air, but I've been texting you like, how does this South Point team have 4 losses, man? I mean, with Haney, he kind of started slow, but he got going.
Yeah.
Carter Smith is like 6'2", and he did well. What's the running back? Elijah Wilburn. I mean, he's only 5'9", but man, he doesn't play like he's 5'9", pulling down rebounds. And he's
going to make
whoever the opposing point guard is not going to have fun.
Yeah,
Elijah Wilburn
because he's going to be all over them the entire game. Like, it was the second time I saw them this year, and that was the second time I've seen him just harass a good point guard for the entire game and just make life miserable for them.
And I mean, for South Point, Lancaster, Ashland Blazer, and Spring Valley. Those are 3 teams that we'll never hear from them for the rest of the season. Now, Blazer and Lancaster are teams, our area team. I've never heard of Spring Valley, I'll be honest.
Okay. The only reason I've heard of Spring Valley is the really good Hutchinson girl from Chesapeake went over there for girls basketball this year. Yeah, I think they're number 1 in West Virginia in girls.
But then, the loss at Fairland, obviously Fairland record-wise hasn't been maybe what we thought they would be, but they still have.
But they've played a really tough schedule too. Yeah.
They have some great players over there as well. So I don't know. Obviously those 3 of their 4 losses are out of the conference. Not just out of the conference, but it's kind of hard to say out of the area because for them, some of those teams are on the area because they're 90 minutes south of us. But I mean, when we get into, they are in our district they're in the southeast for the tournament, correct?
Who?
South Point.
Oh yeah.
So when you start comparing them to some of these D3 teams, I don't know. I would love to see them in Minford play. I'll be honest. I think that would be a fun matchup.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get it last year in the regionals, and then Branson Copas just ripped that away from everybody, and yeah. So South Point, I mean, 8-4. They've won their last 3, and man, they're putting up points. I mean, 70-43 win over Gallia to end last week, or actually during last week. Then 83-49. I mean, is that the most points we've seen in regulation of a game that we've covered?
Ooh,
because
Rock and Chillicothe,
because that was
girls,
overtime.
I know. Oh, in regulation, definitely.
Yeah,
I'll have to look at the final.
Because that Rock Hill Chillicothe was like 90 something.
Yeah, it went into
83 or
overtime. It was me and my dad down at Rio last year. I'm actually gonna check that because I'm kind of curious now.
Well,
in regulation, I'm not. I feel like didn't Westfall score a bunch on Unioto last year?
That game was crazy because they had someone score 30 in the first half and then 30 in the second half.
Yeah, Clark went crazy in the second half, and then Klein went nuts in the first half. Yeah. I don't think they got to 83.
No, but that was that one might have been 79-69 or something.
No, the overhit for sure. What game did we say? Last year, Rock Hill and Chillicothe down at
Rio Grande.
Down at Rio.
It's funny listening to people from outside the area talk about it.
So the final, if it loads, I got to roll through all these ads we have. Oh, it was 88-85.
That's crazy.
So they were 2 and 5 over that. But yes, definitely in regulation, I would say that's the most points we've seen on live stream.
78-65 was that game last year.
Oh, I knew they put up a ton of points. Yeah.
Well, when you have two guys score 30 or 28 plus, that helps. But for South Point, I like what the Hanshaw kid does as well. They can really score. They play Cable Midland, who doesn't have a very good record, but I mean, I don't even know what that means. As far as teams from outside the area go, then they've got Ironton on Friday, which, I think I might go to that.
Is it at South Point? Better be at Ironton. You ain't going.
I might not go to that. I got to see how far that is from my house.
Is it at Ironton or South Point?
South Point.
Ooh.
Yeah,
but you go and you tell me how far it is. And we'll decide if
we're not streaming on Friday, so.
Well, if somebody else goes down, maybe we can ride with them.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going though.
No.
So.
Try to talk our boss into driving us down again.
All right. Well, actually, before we move on, completed the collection of Nugget Buddies.
Yes.
We got all 6.
We got Darla
with the
earmuffs. Now we got to move some cards around because we realized Kerwin Frost, you could see him pretty much from a mile away with his facial tattoo.
Now, there technically still is the gold one, but the promotion is over, and I'm not paying $40 for a golden piece of plastic.
Yeah.
So.
And we did pretty good on this.
No, we bought 6 meals.
Yeah,
we got all 6.
Yeah, we bought 6 meals, got all 6. Now, someone had to make a trade. Yeah. Shout out to you for not getting killed in that trade.
But what are the odds? We were 5 for 5 on our first 5.
So it's 1 in 25,000.
Yeah,
something like that.
Nuts.
Yeah, maybe that was 1 in 6, but to get a different one every time it's incredible odds.
No, we were hot, but we completed it now. Yeah, I mean, we thought we might just have them given to us, but we had to do it the
old-fashioned way.
We go buy them ourselves. All right, one more team to talk about here in the team reviews. We'll talk about Eastern Brown, a team that they're bouncing back. I mean, 11-3, 7-1 in the Shack. That lone loss was to a really good North Adams team. Oh, also mentioning Eastern Brown is another one of these D3 teams. The D3 tournament is going to be nuts. But that one league loss was a 9.53-44 loss to North Adams. Once again, 7-1 in the Shack 2. They have Fairfield on Tuesday. They'll only play once as Fairfield and Peebles flipped. Fairfield now in the Shack 1. Probably, maybe Fairfield's biggest test yet.
I think it is.
If
Maybe
not,
Cedarville. Cedarville's only got one loss, but also I don't know. Like I don't
much about Cedarville.
like that. That could be a one loss and like not very good opponents. So like, and we'll see how much that matters when it comes to the tournament draw. Also,
But for the Warriors, Drew Edmonston, big game winning 3 to take down Blanchester. Once again, 11-3. Now they went 5-15, 4-7 in the Shack last season. Before that, they had at least 6 consecutive winning seasons. The 2015-2016 season on Max Preps only had 6 games, so I'm not sure. The year before, they had a losing record, so at least 6, depending on what they did that year, 7. But we'll say 6 consecutive winning seasons before last season. But, man, I mean, they're bouncing right back. And before the season, we were like, we don't know much about Eastern Brown. I mean, Walkup's coming back as their lone all-Shack selection. But, I mean, a lot of new names that are getting it done. Grady Barber leading the way with 12.5 points per game. Cade Walkup right there as well with 9 points per game. Price Murphy has 8.4, who we saw lead him with like 17 or 18. Man, it may have been more than that. I don't remember, but led him in the box score in their most recent win. And then Drew Edmonston, Luke Haney. I mean, just some of these guys that maybe we weren't familiar with their game or whatever the Shack meme is, but like we didn't know who they were and we weren't familiar with everything they can do. As like I will say, like the Shack boys didn't get as much coverage last year as the Shack girls did. But this Eastern Brown team is making a name for themselves. I'm not sure if we will get to see them this year. Hopefully, if we don't see them in the regular season, we can check them out in the tournament. As I'm excited for the D3 tournament in the Southeast.
Yeah, the D3 tournament should be a lot of fun. It's loaded and it's gonna be fun even seeing who gets to these games. I hope one thing I hope is that we don't get like a Belpre at Eastern Brown random matchup in that first round where like you've got to go 2.5 hours to make the trip for one of these teams. Like I hopefully, because I know last year I watched Adena and Belpre play and like that's not short. Like that was to me the best part about having the sectional sites. Now I kind of wish they had the sectional sites of like, hey, you're going to play over at Waverly. You just got to pick. You pick where you play. So like Eastern Brown might have a better matchup with somebody that they would have to play over at like Meg's, but they're like, I don't want to go to Meg's. I'll go play Waverly. So it could be something like that. Like we'll see. But man, that game, with Fairfield, I just saw somewhere where Larkin Friend had 20 boards against Manchester the other night. Almost would have had a triple-double, but he didn't get the points. Had 9 points in their game, and he's been outstanding all season for the for the Lions. And actually apparently missed. I gave him one more assist that he actually had in the win over Western. I had him for 8 assists. They had him for 7. So shout out Fairfield for having apparently the correct stats. So
I will say Murphy it wasn't their most recent game. It was the one before. He had 16 on 7 of 11 shooting in their 23-point win over Lynchburg. So it just seemed, and I was telling you, like, it just seems like I don't know if I just said like 50 times.
It's all right.
But it seems like they have somebody different leading them in scoring every game. And I'm not sure if the same person has led them in scoring 2 games in a row.
Well, and then like as a coach, you can reiterate that. You can tell kids that repeatedly, but like they may not understand that there are 6 or 7 kids that can lead them in scoring. So you got to be locked in on every single one of those players because they're going to do things fundamentally well, and it's just they're going to be a team that you don't want to see because they're really well coached. And when you got a team where literally anyone can do it on any night, that's just a really tough matchup for anybody. But going to that game with Fairfield, Fairfield's got that game at Eastern. And then they've got
North Adams this week as well on Friday.
Well, that's for Eastern. Yeah.
Oh,
I was just going to go to the Fairfield game real quick, but Fairfield at Eastern on Tuesday. Then they got Ripley, Southeastern, McLean. Those all should be wins. Then On the 26th, they've got North Adams at home. I would love if good guys just were like, hey, you guys can take that one.
Yeah.
But then they're at Hillsborough on the 30th. Should beat Fayetteville. Then they got Miami Trace. I think that's the game we were shooting for. Yeah. Then they're at White Oak, which Weston Blair is back for White Oak, so that'll make them better at least. So this is the toughest test so far for the Lions, and as you mentioned, it doesn't get any easier for Eastern after that.
All right, so we'll talk about our 3 game previews coming up this week. Our first, I guess we're going to a game tonight, Monday night, with Webster and West on the girls' side. But our boys' stream this week going to be on Thursday. This game got moved up, originally scheduled for like February 20th. Now being played this Thursday on the 18th. It's Circleville at Unioto, a non-league game, but 2 Division II teams that are above 500. Circleville, some impressive wins thus far against... I think they beat... Did they beat... I know they beat Fairfield Union. I thought they beat Bloom Carroll as well.
This will be their first game with Bloom Carroll.
Oh, they haven't played Bloom
They
yet.
play them Tuesday.
I thought they had already played. Oh, so they have Bloom before. So that'll be... Because obviously Bloom and Fairfield Union went literally right down to the wire with Schmelzer hitting that 3-point runner right at the horn to go from down 2 to up 1.
Yeah, and then they won at Miami Trace in a game where they were down 17 at halftime and then just said, you're not scoring anymore. As Miami Trace scored 5 points in the second half of that game. Yeah. So it seems like Circleville's starting to lock in defensively after that Westfall game where they gave up 79 in overtime, but 39 against Miami Trace and 44 against Fairfield Union. They did give up 60 in a loss against Liberty Union to end last week, but it's a good team. I think they run some really good stuff. They've got some nice pieces. Slater Search, Briley Kramer, it's Preston Hall's another. Ed Kirk is another one. They've got it. I think they probably work together a little bit better this year than they have in the past. And, they beat Zane Trace to start the season. So, they have, some good wins. And really, their losses are by 4, by 1, by 5, and by 4. So they've been in some really tight games. They're very close to possibly being 11-0. They do have Bloom Carroll on Tuesday. So they will have a challenge before that.
Tough week for the Tigers. And
I'm guessing that the game probably got moved up because I think it was probably going to be during the tournament time.
Yeah, it would have been extremely close.
Yeah, so and right now it looks like these two could play in the first round of the tournament. So maybe get it out of the way early and make sure you get all your games in. For Unioto, they've won 3 straight. Zeke Schoblock had 29 the other night in a 35-point win over Piketon. They had a bunch of different guys score in that game, and the videos I saw of the students and the bench looking really excited for some of the deeper bench guys to score, reminded me of a deeper team than what it seemed like early in the season for them, where playing this really tough schedule to start, and they had some losses. It seemed like they were almost fracturing, but now it seems like they're coming back together and probably doing it so at the right time. So it's a big game for Unioto. Coach Hoops, when I told him that we were coming, was not excited because he's like, we never win when you're there. And I was like,
man, they really haven't too many times.
And they beat Jackson last year, and that's what I told him. And
that's about it.
Yeah, he still didn't seem overly impressed when I said that.
Let me think. Lost to Zane Trace last year.
Lost
to
Westfall.
Courthouse this year. Lost to Westfall last year. I think those.
But it's not as bad as Jackson girls.
I'm sorry, man. We just.
Yeah.
We're not. I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about them in a little bit, but also, it's just sorry, Coach Walburn. It's just it's we don't do it on purpose, but it just kind of happens. But yeah, so I think that's gonna be a good game. It's to my knowledge the only boys game on Thursday. There's some girls games in the area. We'll talk about them coming up, but if not, just make sure to check out SOSA, presented by Ohio Health.
God, it's close enough.
Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by Ohio Health.
I will say, for Unioto, they've played one of the tougher schedules this year. They beat Miami Trace by 13. Miami Trace has, 2 losses on the season? 3.
3 now.
Undefeated in the FAC. they also lose to Zane Trace, who right now winning the SVC is the Unioto in second place, tied with I think Westfall.
No,
Westfall has 2 losses.
Yeah, because Adena put it on them.
Yeah, but you also lose to Fairland, Jackson, South. I will say losing to South Point by 5 looks a lot more impressive now than it did on the 23rd. You lose to Courthouse as well, so man, in the non-league they're 2-4, so it hasn't been great. But I mean, you beat Miami Trace, you beat Alexander, who I don't think has a win this season. But it's not really like you're playing middle of the pack non-league teams. You're playing teams that are all contesting. Maybe not Fairland. They're tied for third. I would say all 4 of those teams you lost to are contesting for league titles at this point in this season. So I think the 7-5 record might be a little misleading. Maybe if the schedule was a little bit easier, they'd be 9-3, or maybe they'd have 10 wins. But you want to go out and challenge yourself. I mean, you don't want to just play for Unioto, they're D2, so you don't want to go play a bunch of D4, D3 non-conference teams. You're going to play a bunch of D2 teams, which obviously Fairland and South Point are D3, but they're good. Those are really good D3 teams.
They dropped Logan this year, which is a pretty bad D1 team, and they picked up South Point in that spot. So I mean, you replace a not very good D1 with a really good D3. Fairland replaced Hillsborough, which Hillsborough's on a little downturn now, but they've had a nice season so far.
They've had some bright spots.
So I mean, I like what they did schedule wise, but when you mentioned very close to being a better record, same can go with Circleville, as they've played a lot of close games so far, and they've dropped most of them. So they're 1-4 in games decided by 5 points or less, and they're 7-4 overall. Yep. So they tighten those things up, and they're very close to being 10-1, 9-2. So I think these are 2 really good teams that maybe record-wise you may not think as much of, but if you really go deeper into things, it's going to be a good matchup.
All right, so we'll move on to a game we hinted at earlier on, the last 2 undefeated teams in the SOC3, Minford and Wheelersburg. Somebody's walking out undefeated in the league. Somebody's going to have their first loss, as I believe this will wrap up the first trip around the league for both of these teams. So it'll be a fun time down at, I don't know if they have a funny name for their gym, but down at Wheelersburg.
The Pirates.
The Ed Miller Arena.
Yeah, so that at Wheelersburg, it's never easy to win at Wheelersburg. They're 9-3. I think maybe people didn't expect them to be this good early. Yeah,
I did not.
Well, it was so many sophomores. You start Braylon Rucker, who I think he had 26 the other night against South Webster, and fouled out with 5 minutes left. You also you start, I had to get to his name, Landon McGraw, because they're one of the ones that has 30 people on their roster, but I know who the players are. I just want to get to the names. But Landon McGraw is one of the tougher kids that you're going to see in the area. He's listed at 6'2". I don't know if he's 6'2", but he plays bigger than what he is. They didn't really get out rebounded by South Webster, and they don't play anyone over 6'2". So and
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's just they're tough. And then you have Devin Lattimore running the show, and he's a left-handed guard that can give you a lot of issues.
Lattimore's left-handed?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I do not remember that last year when I saw him play.
Yeah, so he's a tough guard. And you lose your point guard before the season in Connor Eastep, but it seems like they've been able to fill in really nicely.
And imagine if they had Eastep.
I know. It would just
They're 9-3.
You're not scoring on them if you got Eastep, because that just would have raised their defensive intensity even more. But they're it's a very good team.
Well,
and they play at St. Trace on Tuesday.
Wheelersburg does.
Yeah. So
Gerald probably won't be
Gerald's
back
still not back. But
is Langley coming back for that?
I don't think so, because he had surgery the other day. But Gerald doesn't have surgery, which means he could be back this season. So that could be huge for St. Trace. But, they do have that game on Tuesday, but, it's good for them to get Minford at home the first time around.
Yep.
I don't know, if you're feeling great about it anyway, because you still got to deal with Miles Montgomery and Jackson Shoemaker, and why can't I think of his name?
Bennett Kazee.
Yeah, Bennett Kazee. I mean, you got to deal with those three, and then when Jeffrey Pika goes 2 for 2 from 3, I'll have fun with that. And that's not even mentioning Troy Rhodes, who's going to really be a lockdown guy. Cade Glockner does a really good job for them off the bench. So I mean, you gotta. The thing with Montgomery is, and I even talked to him about it. Like, he's shooting really deep threes. If those fall, what do you do?
Yeah.
Because you almost want to give him the space. Because if you get up on him, he is going to absolutely fly by you.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to stop him. And then you look to stop him. Oh, then you got Bennett Kazee, who can go inside out. And then Jackson Shoemaker, who, like...
I've never seen him take a 3 that wasn't top of the key. It's top of the key, like, every time.
Yeah. And it's...
Probably going in.
Yeah.
Like, I will say for Wheelersburg, like, the one thing we criticized him for was, anytime they play a team with some height, they're in trouble. Well, Portsmouth wasn't a problem. South Webster wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
And you look at this game, it's like, well, Minford has a clear height advantage. I don't think that matters. I really don't. I mean, it obviously helps. The cause for Minford is, you have Shoemaker and you have Kazee, and Troy Rhodes is probably 6'1" or 6'2", similar to some of the bigger guys for Wheelersburg, but they've already proven that, Donovan Breach is probably 6'2", and Barry's like 6'3" or something. So
big.
And yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a problem for him yet, so I don't see that changing here. God, I almost want to make a pick, but I also don't want to ruin my. I'm on like a 2-game win streak right now.
Well, I'm just going to throw out that one of the teams that
because we're not calling it, so I feel like it's free range to make a pick. All right, we have to make a pick. Make a pick. Minford.
Yeah.
God, man.
It's not like, to me, it's not like slam dunk, but I just think Kazee rebounds at such a high level that I
feel like Minford is a little more aggressive than Webster.
Yeah.
At least that's what I saw in the game that we saw them play each other.
I think the guard depth for Minford will help too.
Depth?
Just
with 6 players.
Yeah, but they can play 4 or 5 of those guys at guard. Yeah. So,
gosh, man, that's tough. I'll go with Minford.
Okay. So I do want to shout out.
Wheelersburg beat Webster by 10 at Webster, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to win at Wheelersburg, but I got to throw this out there. Webster lost to, just because this is such a ridiculous thing, Webster lost to Harvest Prep early in the year by 9, which was a really good game. Harvest Prep this past week.
Harvest Prep beat Wheelersburg by a lot more than 9.
No.
Is that what you just said?
It was 67-58.
I thought you said, I swear you said Webster lost to Harvest Prep.
No, Wheelersburg. So Wheelersburg lost to him by 9. Harvest Prep won a game this past week, 127-38.
Was it against
Miller? Miller, who I think P. Floyd has
the Falcons logo.
Yeah, Miller has, or P. Floyd has them as the worst team in the area.
All right, I think that's enough Minford Wheelersburg talk. I think we're both going with Minford.
Yeah,
but that's hard. Like, that's a hard pick. I would not put money on that game.
No,
like at all. I would maybe
points.
Oh yeah, I would maybe mess around with like the over.
I would always take the over,
but I don't
actually. You know who I wouldn't take the over with?
Don't tell me. Logan Elm.
Well, yeah, definitely not. But I was gonna say the Minford girls.
Oh yeah,
and they're gonna win.
Yeah.
they're gonna just guard you. But yeah, moving on to another game Saturday. 9-4 Adena, winners of 7 straight, will take on the Northwest Mohawks at the Mohawks.
In McDermott.
Yeah, in McDermott at Roy Rogers gym.
Everything is Roy Rogers.
Yeah, I would. I mean, singing cowboy, bud. So Northwest 9-2 on the season, loaded with seniors, and they're starting in SOC2 play, and they've been doing really well. They did not play very well that night. We watched them over at Waverly. Speaking of not playing very well, when we saw Adena over at play St. Trace, did not play very well outside the first 4 minutes. So, Adena, winners of 7 straight. It'll be 8 straight because, no offense to Huntington, but they're probably going to knock off Huntington on Friday. But Adena has had different dudes that can just really fill it. They've shot at such a crazy high percentage recently. Easton Hennis had 26 points on 9 of 12 shooting the other night. He was 4 for 5 from 3. Lucas King is close to a double-double. And, Jody Ader started to get going for them. It's a team that they have a bunch of athletes that seemed like they didn't really know what best way to use them. Then they lose to Columbus West, who's solid on a last-second shot, and it seemed like things could kind of fracture for them, and it has. If it's fractured, it came back together with a vengeance, as they have, once again, they've won 7 straight. They absolutely annihilated Westfall the other night, 79-52, and I'm not sure if it was that close of a game. Whenever I looked, I was like, this game is an absolute blowout. Yeah. After that loss to West, they beat McLean 50-27, New Hope 67-49, Valley 56-51, Paint Valley 53-50. That one was kind of I still wasn't sure if I was in on them yet. And then I watched them beat Hillsborough 80-57, and that was just a bloodbath. They beat Southeastern 75-40, and then the aforementioned 79-52 win over Westfall. So they have gotten rolling in a big way lately. It's just they're not an easy matchup because they're going to shoot a lot of threes and they're going to make a lot of threes. And really, the one, the player that's made maybe the biggest difference for them has been Caden Lee since he's been put in the starting lineup. He hasn't been shooting a lot. He was a leading scorer for Chillicothe last year. I think he was trying to force some stuff early in the year, but he had 8 points, 8 assists the other night. When he's getting them set up into the proper spots, they're in really good shape. Right now, Jody Ader, 14.8 points a game. Lucas King, 11.6 points, 8.7 rebounds. Easton Hennis, 12.3 points. Caden Lee, 8.2 points. And Bryson Smith, 5.9 points. But he's one that, he can guard you anywhere as well. So I've just been really impressed with what they've been able to do over the last few weeks. And this is a big one for them because this is kind of one of those proving games because, after that, you've got, let me pull it up real quick. So after they've got Huntington this week, then they go at Piketon, tough place to play. Then they've got Unioto at St. Trace.
Yeah, so I was going to say they're going to have to play Unioto and St. Trace the second time around.
Yeah, so you've got some quality teams coming up, and you've got this is a good chance for you to say, hey, we are as good as our record has been lately, or is it kind of fool's gold? I think it's more along the line of it's real, especially after watching them in person. But at the same time, you got to deal with Connor Lentz.
Right.
Have fun with that. And Tanner Boland's been going crazy. He had 25 again the other night against Sims Valley in a game they absolutely dominated.
Yeah, 65-24. I will say, for Northwest, they're at Notre Dame tomorrow night, Tuesday night. I'll be interested to see the box score on that one. Probably going to pick up a win Friday night against Oak Hill, then obviously taking on Adena on Saturday. But then next 2 games, Eastern and Western. And then you get White Oak, and then to kick off February, you take on South Gallia for a second time, team you only beat by 3 at South Gallia. You get them at home this time, which I would assume will be a little bit, always makes it a little bit easier at home. So, after Adena for Northwest, you have 3 big league games, Eastern, Western, and South Gallia with White Oak in between. So, sort of the bulk of league play coming up after the reading for both teams.
Yeah, not an easy stretch at all coming up for Northwest, as you mentioned. So it's this one should be fun to watch. Allegedly, our Derek Webb will be there. If he's not there, I'll be there because we're
not doing anything on Saturday.
Yeah, that's gonna be too good of a game
this week. All right, let's talk some girls basketball.
Let's go.
Start with some individual performances, starting with a player we'll see a little bit later on tonight. Skylar Zimmerman, a point shy of a 40-piece, 39 points in the Jeeps win over Waverly, 74-71. Goes into overtime. Also eclipses the 1,000-point mark in the win.
Did not eclipse. Hit it.
Yeah, she has exactly 1,000 points.
I saw a post that was from her mom on Facebook.
The 7,000 thing.
Yeah, well, not just that, but I mean, like wasn't expecting it. Well, yeah, you're not expecting 39, and
man, that's. I was gonna say that kind of sucks because like if she would have had 15 or something, we may have got to see it tonight.
Yeah.
Or if she would have just maybe missed that last free throw,
right?
We may have seen it early tonight. But nonetheless, congrats to her. Having a great season so far.
Yeah, needed every one of those points, too, because you beat a athletic Waverly team. And, like, that just shows the depth of the SOC3. It's like Waverly we haven't really even talked about. And they take South Webster to overtime. And there's
on the road.
Yeah, on the road. There's a reason why we're going to, which, this will come out on Tuesday, so you can go back and watch the game from Monday night that we went to, which is South Webster at West. There's a reason why we're going to it. It's because there's two good teams. And for South Webster, with Zimmerman, 19.7 points a game, 4.2 steals per game. She's made 23s and has shot 77% from the free throw line. So maybe she was shooting 76%. Her first point would be that tonight. But it's a good team over there at South Webster. Once again, we've talked about it. It'd been nice if they were D4. I think they're right on the verge. But with Bella Claxton, Addie Claxton, had a really good week last week. It's a good team.
Is boys basketball like the only thing they're D4 in?
Yeah, well, baseball too.
I keep forgetting they don't have football.
I haven't said football, but yeah, they don't.
Have they ever had it?
I don't think. They may have had it before soccer, but to my knowledge, they have not. But they were always really good at soccer. So,
and I wonder, what schools are around South Webster, like in the vicinity?
Minford.
So, I wonder how many people, go to South Webster, but then they leave because they can't play football.
Right.
So you might lose athletes because of that. But I don't know.
Well, I think you're going to see kids, maybe if they would have left early, like maybe before they even got to high school.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I meant. Like they lose people in middle school and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they're usually very good in boys sports.
Well, they went to
and I feel like they're always good in girls sports.
Yeah, I mean, that
because like the girls sports, they probably don't lose anyone that might go play football. But of course you have a kid like a Tyler Summer come in from Wheelersburg that I think, I know he was a soccer player even at Wheelersburg, but I feel like physically he could have played football. Like he's a good,
probably
strong athlete. But going back to South Webster girls, like we mentioned, we're going to be at their game on Monday against West. And then they're at Valley on Thursday, and a big one on Saturday with Lynchburg Clay.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that will be interesting just because Clay's...
Have ETN, West, and Massey, so see how they match up with them.
Yeah, Clay's a good team, and, I wish that game was at Lynchburg. I don't love going to South Webster.
They have a big gym. I was surprised.
I get lost.
Going to South Webster?
Uh-huh. Well, and so when I left there last year, I got lost going out of there, and I had absolutely zero service, so I couldn't even pull up a map to get myself reacclimated, and I just had to drive until I found a road I remembered from my days at FedEx. I'm like, oh yeah, I know this road. This definitely connects to Minford or Jackson. Yeah, I'm a dummy.
All right, let's talk about Abbie Knapp and the Green Bobcats. Talked about Knapp early on, but it's been a little while, but not a whole lot has changed for just a freshman, correct? Yeah. I thought so. Nothing much has changed for the freshman. 36 points, and the Bobcats win over New Boston 57-43. Knapp nearly averaging 30 points per game. Maddie Hayslip also in double figures in terms of average points on the season as well.
If you're going to hit the 1,000-point mark, in the middle of your sophomore year, that's pretty good. So, yeah, Knapp, 28.2 points a game, 12.1 rebounds a game, 2.7 steals, 2.4 blocks. And then, like you mentioned, with Maddie Hayslip, 11.2 points a game, also a freshman, and 3.5 steals a game. So I think the future is very bright for Green. They were under 500 last year. I couldn't find a definitive record. It was like 4-13 on Max Preps, which I'm sure they played more
than 17 games.
So, but 8-5 overall, 3-0 in the SOC1. Things will get tough on Monday when they play at Notre Dame, which, this will come out afterwards. But then they play versus Hannon on Thursday. She might score 40 in that one. That might be, Hannon's 1-5. Then they play at East next Monday, which
Another 40 apiece.
Yeah, which they're 1-7. So I mean,
2-12 combined record after Notre Dame on Monday.
Yeah, so be tough against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, obviously, they're well coached. They're good. They almost beat a good Martin County team on Saturday.
Yeah, that was an OT game, wasn't it?
Yeah, lost by 1 in overtime, and it's a good team. So I mean, and that's Notre Dame is the mark you want to get to
Top
in that
dog.
league. Yeah. So
I remember I counted it up. How many consecutive SOC1 games?
It's well over 100.
It's like, I was going to say it's like 6 or 7 seasons worth. I don't know. We saw Fairland go down. Maybe we'll have another
maybe
streak get stopped.
I'll say no, but maybe. You never know.
I haven't seen Green.
Here's the thing.
I can't say, but
if you're going to beat a team like that, you need to have someone that can put up 30 in a game, and like you have to have that. So maybe we'll see.
Blue Jackets won 4-3.
I disagree.
Oh no, they did.
I know. I'm still going to disagree. I think they probably will find a way to lose, even with the win.
All right, our last individual performer, Mya Hamilton for Unioto, 32 points in the Sherman's 17-point win over Westerville South, and as we're recording this, they just lost to Olentangy by 2 points. It wasn't in overtime. It was just in regulation, but
yeah,
I think it was like 65,
62. Yep.
And 65, 62.
Yeah.
And they led going into the fourth, 49, 48. So pretty good showing for them, but a great showing for Hamilton in the win over Westerville South.
Yeah, in the game against Westerville South, they the creditor for 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and 32 points. Like, you're playing a really good Westerville South team. It's not like they were one of these, like when they beat Dublin Kaufman, they weren't as good as I think they were hoping they would be when they played them. So, they go and challenge themselves with Westerville South, who's got, their best player is a D1 player. And then they've got a couple of really good younger kids, too, that are probably going to be D1 players. And then you put up 28 the night before in a really easy win over Paint Valley. But then 25 plus in a loss. I didn't get the final numbers, but I know she hit a 3 late that made it to at least 25 in that game against Olentangy. And Olentangy is a top 5 ranked team in Division I. So you go out, challenge yourself, and she really showed out in a big way in those games. She's up to 16.9 points a game and really has been improving her outside shot, because early in the season it was pretty inconsistent, but in the last 2 games especially, she's hit 6 or 7 threes. So that's just makes her really tough to guard. They're 13-2 overall for Unioto. They've got, they still have Adena left and then Jackson left in the regular season, but overall those are the 2 that are going to be challenges for them. The rest of the way, they should win pretty easy on the other ones. Miley Smith averaging over 17 points a game. Amaris Betts over 13 points a game. She may get to 1,000 points on Tuesday when they play Huntington. If not, she'll get it on Saturday at Piketon. I don't know how many she had exactly today as well, so I know she was like 28 or 29 away, so she's going to be getting close. Like I mentioned, Tuesday at Huntington and then Saturday at Piketon.
All right, and then just a week ago, we'll move on to our team performance reviews and just straight up game reviews, and that's what this first one is going to be. Probably the biggest girls game we're going to have this year in terms of the regular season is Portsmouth takes down the Dragons 55-51, Fairland's first league loss and I think 43 contests, first time in like a year and a half. The last one was to Coalgrove in like January of 21 or something like that. So Dragons have been a bit of a dynasty the last couple of years. First win for Portsmouth over Fairland since joining the OBC had been like 18 straight.
Right.
So
yeah, and then who knows before that?
Right.
Because how often would they have played and whatnot? So Dasha Reed had 21 on the night. She had the last 6 points for the Trojans. She scored, and then I think it was Kylie Bruce scored on the other end, and then Reed hit a 3 that was kind of like that Michigan 3 today, where it's like maybe not the best time to shoot it, but was a dagger because she shot it with confidence, and she had a really good overall night. And then she made 1 or 2 free throws at the end of the game to seal it. Sienna Allen had 19 points, 10 rebounds. Kiki Woods, though, may have been like the under, like I think she had 4, might have had 5, but overall played just great defense. She virtually shut down, Bailey Russell, who's one of the better players in our area, and just by being active constantly defensively, she handled the ball pretty well. She had a big basket in the fourth quarter as well, so I was really impressed with what Woods was able to do. Portsmouth, then they ended up playing Mason, who's one of the bigger schools in the state. It ended up losing on Sunday, and then we're taping on Monday. They're getting ready to play the Laurel School, which is one of the favorites in Division II. So we'll see how they do today in that. So for Fairland, Bree Allen, 17 points, but was held scoreless in the fourth quarter, which is probably the biggest part of that game for the Trojans. I almost said the Dragons. Also, Cam Barnes, she had 9 points. She hit a couple of really big threes in that game. They were 7 of 24 from 3, which is a little bit below what they normally shoot. But overall, that's where they can really, really kill you is 3-point shooting, and then if you don't rebound off of those. And Portsmouth did a great job of rebounding, and, they also did a good job getting their hands up, making those shots a little bit deeper, a little more uncomfortable for Fairland at times. But man, Fairland may bounce back in a little bit, as they played Gallia on Thursday and won 85-21, and then they had a really good win this morning. So on Monday, had a really good win at 9 a.m. Once again, have fun playing at 9 a.m. They beat a 7-4 Gilmore Academy team, who I think they may have technically the strongest strength of schedule in the state of Ohio, Gilmore Academy. So it's like they've played really good teams throughout the whole season, and a 58-45 win for Fairland over them is very impressive. So don't look at the fact they have 4 losses. Look at the fact that they play such a ridiculous schedule, and then maybe they just treated them like it was Gallia Academy, since they're playing blue and silver and white.
With a G name.
GA names, yeah.
Like, I will say for Portsmouth, I don't know. Like, I feel like Daisha Reed might be sort of the X factor for them. Because, I don't know, I feel like most nights, Sienna Allen is probably going to get hers.
Yeah.
Right? Probably going to be in big games like this, 15-plus most of the time. I think Brian just sent me a text message. I'll look at that here in a second.
Yeah.
But,
me too.
Yeah, for Allen, I don't know, like had 19 and 10, second on the team in scoring behind Reed, but like, I mean, what day should Reed shoot? 4 of 5 or 4 of 7 or something from 3?
6 or 4 of 7
right.
from 3.
And some of those shots were tough.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I mean, scored her last 6 of the game. If she can shoot like that in big games, there's nobody that's, especially in Division III, that is going to beat Portsmouth, because you can't guard that.
Yeah.
And not the tallest, right? Probably, I think they had her listed like 5'5" or 5'6" or something. But I mean, they're going crazy in the SOSA chat right now. But 21 points, once again, the last 6 for them, 2 big threes. I mean,
well, and like, she can get to the hoop too, which she's strong, she's quick, and
and she has a fast trigger.
Yeah.
It doesn't take her very long to get the shot off. I mean, it's just straight step back.
Well, and she does the step back really well too. So like, just because she's 5'5", I think she's probably had to work on that to get it off as quick as she does, and she does it very quickly, and that makes, like, she would be an unbelievable number 1 option for
and you can't
99% of the teams in our area,
and you can't put somebody that's Bree Allen might be a little excessive because I think she's like 6 foot, but like
Yeah.
you can't put somebody that's a little taller, like for Fairland to be, Godby or like Bruce.
Yeah.
Because they're not fast enough. I mean, you
Yeah.
could get her, you can put somebody taller so they can close out quicker and a little bit stronger, but all it takes is one pump fake and it's over with.
Yeah,
and
then-
I know Woods didn't shoot much, but you're not going to put. You can put somebody her size on her, and that probably isn't going to matter. I mean, most of the time she was getting around people, did a great job breaking the press for Portsmouth. As Fairland was giving at least 3/4 court pressure.
And they had less than 10 turnovers in the game. And that was to me, that was the biggest part was Fairland. Yes, they can beat you from 3. Yeah, they can beat you on offense rebounds, but man, they can turn you over like crazy. And they weren't able to turn over, they weren't able to turn over Portsmouth. And even, I don't know if they looked at Kiki Woods and saw that she was very tired at halftime, but they moved her off the ball and had Daisha Reed bringing the ball up. And once again, you as you mentioned, like if you put someone quick or bigger on her, she's going to be able to go around you. If you put someone,
her size or smaller, it's not going to get a great contest.
Yeah, and it's. I think that's going to be a really fun matchup. The second time they play down at Fairland, I think Fairland's going to.
That's a circle date.
Yeah,
that's some bulletin board.
Well,
material.
and especially for Fairland because they've got after they beat Gilmore Academy, they've got they have Goshen next week, which I'll talk about a little bit. But I mean, I feel like they're going to beat Goshen pretty solidly. And then after that, it's Portsmouth. I mean, they've got league games up until then and. Up until the tournament, and just throwing it out there, like the Division 4 or Division 2 is just so ridiculous because it's not a very good chance, but there's a chance that Fairland, Sheridan, and Unioto could all be in the same district.
Man, that would suck.
I don't think.
Because then you're going to have a district semifinal
right,
between one of those.
I don't think that it'll be. Because I don't think Sheridan's going to lose. And really, I don't think Unioto's going to lose again. And Fairland might have one loss, but I think it would be after the tournament draw. But I don't even know if they'll lose that. So I don't think they would be the 1-4-5, but it could be the 1-3-4 because Circleville, who we're going to talk about here in a minute, they're
probably not going to lose.
Probably not losing.
Yeah. February 5th, be in Proctorville for that one. Big date, Portsmouth and Fairland, round 2. To round out, that'll be their last OVC game for both teams. So that the OVC could literally come down to Portsmouth winning it outright, or who knows? Maybe Portsmouth or Fairland drop another game up or before then. But we'll see. Definitely. Even if it's not for the league, going to be a high stakes. It would be a revenge game for Fairland anyway, and a chance to get for both teams, a chance to get some momentum heading into the tournament. Is the last 2 games for Fairland are home against Portsmouth and then at Notre Dame. So 2 big games to round out the season for the Dragons. And as you said, let's talk about Circleville, Division 2, 13-0, a huge win over an Amanda Clear Creek team who they only beat by 3 in their last meeting, winners by 20 this time around.
And it wasn't that close.
No.
Because it was up to, it was almost 30. And then
it should have been 18.
Yeah.
But at the horn.
Yeah. But, yeah, I was really impressed with this Circleville team. I mean, they did it really with Gabby McConnell not doing a whole lot because that was the big focus for Amanda was to take away Gabby McConnell. And she didn't have to. Didn't have to do much at all in the game because Maddie Blakeman had a big game. Faith Yancey was really good, I thought, throughout the game for them, especially early. And then at the end of the game, you had Addison Edgington.
Who, she came on late.
Yeah. Had 10 points, 5 rebounds in the fourth quarter.
Well, she finished with, what, 15?
14.
14.
Yeah. So she had 14. McConnell was 4 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, something like that.
It seemed like everybody in the starting lineup for Circleville had at least 5 steals.
Yeah. And then, Blakeman, I think, had 15. I think she finished leading scorer. Yeah. But then Faith Yancey was at 8, and she was causing all kinds of havoc. Isabel Perini hit a big 3 early in the game. And, to me, that's the biggest thing for them is, how are they going to shoot from the outside?
Man, was that the only made 3 all night for either team?
No, because Pew made a 3.
Oh, for Amanda.
Yeah. But, they really only play 6 because Allie Thornsley came off the bench too. But for the most part, for Circleville, I was just really impressed with what they do defensively. Yeah, they play a zone, but man, it is an active zone. But I will say one thing: they have played a ton of home games.
Yeah.
Wow. So maybe that could, at Gallia, at Logan Elm, at Hamilton, at Taze Valley, at Washington, at
Taze
Liberty
Valley
Union.
Taze Valley is one. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
Taze and Bloom Carroll, although they beat them both already, those are ones you're going to want to look at. Only beat Taze Valley by 5, handled Bloom Carroll by 17.
And that was at Bloom Carroll, too.
And, I don't know. I know they beat Bloom Carroll by 22, but, I mean, they have Kiana Ingram. I know you saw him earlier in the season against
Westfall.
Against Westfall. So, I mean, they definitely have some talent, but, Fairfield Union, probably not. I mean...
But I feel like they're well coached, and they play a style that you're not going to be...
Chillicothe to round out the season. I mean...
The big ones for them are at Taze on the 27th, and then Bloom Carroll on the 10th. So, I mean, the at Taze, like you mentioned, they only beat Taze by 5 at home, and Taze is a good team. So, I mean, they're going to win at Gallia, they're going to win at Hamilton, they're going to win at Washington. Like you mentioned, Logan Elm will be a little tougher as a lot of sophomores are getting better. But man, this is they're a tough matchup. I just looked at the Liberty Union score. They ain't losing that one the next time.
Wait, was it the 44? Yeah, 44 to 8. I thought I remembered that.
Well, and I'm just going to go over their scoring so far. 44, 50, 48, 49, 44, 39, 62, 39, 51, 51, 44, 51, 45. They're not going to score a lot of points. But, man, you're not going to score a lot against them. So it's just they're a team that plays very good defense. They rebound the ball at a high level. They don't really turn it over. So, I mean, it's a team that is not fun to play against. They give up 29.5 points a game.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
is that the team you said earlier you'd bet the under on?
No, it was Minford, but I didn't.
Circleville
girls.
Circleville and Minford played each other. Be 30 to 28 or something crazy.
And it would just be a knockdown, drag out fight the entire game, and it'd be awesome to watch. But yeah, so shout out to Circleville. Really good start for them.
Let's talk about another game. We had it last year on live stream. Once again, extremely tight, all the way down to the wire. Adena finishes Adena wins 59-57, ends on a 5-0 run to pick up the 2-point win at Jackson.
Yeah, we probably would have done that this year, except for it was the same night as Portsmouth and Fairland. Yeah. So, last Monday night, a really big win for Adena. And this was one, they both came in with one loss, and, have been playing really well, and Adena able to fight it off until the end. And really, if you've seen Adena, Sydney Ader can play, but she's not the one that you typically see in the box score. She had 16 points, 5 rebounds on the night. It was huge for them in that first half to keep them in the game. Kara Williams, 13 points, 3 steals. Marley Halcomb, only a freshman, had 12. This is a night that Emma Garrison was held under 10, but, still you hold her under 10. Last year, I think you hold her under 10, they're not winning. This year, you have players like Ader, Williams, and Halcomb that can really step up and do a lot of different things for them. They are now 14-1 on the season. Their only loss to Unioto, which was without Emma Garrison. So, I mean, that's something we'll talk about in a couple weeks. So, they have a very good chance to get to 15-1 because they're at Westfall on Tuesday. Will be a little tougher on Saturday with Huntington, who's had a really good season, but I feel like they're going to win that game as well. But Huntington is in 3rd in the SVC. So, that is they beat Southeastern, who's in 4th in the SVC on, was that Saturday?
Did Huntington beat Southeastern?
No, Adena did.
How are they 4th?
Who?
You said Southeastern's 4th in the SVC girls?
Yeah.
Who's 3rd?
Huntington.
So Huntington beat Southeastern?
Yeah.
I just said that and you said no.
Oh, I thought you meant last week.
No.
You silly goose. I'm sorry. Apologies. So Adena, sitting in 2nd place, they'll still have a chance to get a share of the SVC, I believe on the 30th is when they've got Unioto at Unioto. Now for Jackson, they dropped to 9-2 that night. They won 2 more since then, but they were led that night by Kenzie Davis with 17 points and 11 rebounds. She had a really big game last year at Adena as well. TJ Carpenter with 13 points, Maddie Walburn with 12. Jackson is now 11-2 because they won, really impressively over McLean and Hillsborough to finish the week. This week they're at Washington on Wednesday, and then they play Fairfield at Eastern Brown on Saturday. Those should be wins.
I will say the only thing that sucks for Jackson is that both of their losses are like Division III teams.
Yeah.
Now, like, they're good Division III teams. It just sucks that they're in Division III because I
Right.
feel like that sort of hurts the seeding once you get to the postseason. But, I mean, they also only have 2 losses.
Right.
And, I mean, probably going to go undefeated in the FAC. I mean, they went
would
undefeated
guess so.
the first time around. As you said, they took down McLean and Hillsborough to start off the second trip around the league.
Well, and then I feel like McLean was probably the toughest.
Yeah, so
out of that.
they still have Courthouse, Chillicothe,
And Miami
Trace. So
And then, our last game that we're going to talk about was one that I went down to on Thursday. I went back to Muletown, Minford 39, Portsmouth West 37. Maggie Reisner 19 points, including 9 in the fourth quarter. And then the biggest 2 points were the game-winning basket, the runner at the buzzer. I wasn't sure she was going to get it off. She gets it off, banks it in after she split 2 defenders, banks it in, and, sends the Minford boys basketball team, which was the student section, into a frenzy. They beat the players out on the court to celebrate. So pretty fun game down there at Minford. They also had Lindsey Williams. She had 11 points, 13 rebounds, 2 blocks. Lexi Conkle didn't really do a lot offensively until the last 2 minutes. She hit a go-ahead 3 with 2:23 left in the game after it felt like the beginning of the fourth quarter it was starting to get away from them, but they started to chip away. And a lot of that was, obviously with Reisner scoring the 9 points in the fourth quarter, but Conkle's 3 was huge. Just gave them that lead late, and they started to add on a little bit at the free throw line, but then Emma Sayre was able to get to the line pretty much at will. She had 15 points for the Senators. She was 10 for 10 at the free throw line. I'm not sure if any of them hit any part of the rim on any of the 10. She also had 6 assists, 6 steals on the night. She just does everything for them. She's so fun to watch. And they got a big basket from Kate Rollins late in that game that extended their lead. Also, Macy Wisman, the freshman, had 7
is
points.
that how you pronounce it? I was going to ask if it was Weissman or Wisman.
They announced it as Wisman the other day. So
Well, the guy at Circleville also said Weiss' name is least. So
okay. You know what's the worst part about that?
what?
He said least for the player, but he announced the coach as liced. It's his kid.
Yeah.
Come on, man. So, so this is a really good game. Really well played. There's a good bit of turnovers, but it was because of the defensive intensity in the game. For Minford, they were also able to beat Eastern Megs on Saturday, I believe 66-15, something like that. How about that? You got to drive over to Minford for that game and you lose by 50. That's not fun. They do have a big one on Monday, which we'll talk about next week, which is they have Wheelersburg on Monday. Both are 3-0 in the SOC 3. Then they're at Waverly to finish the first round on Thursday, which is going to be, you don't want to have a let up there because that Waverly team is dangerous. Then they play McLean at Eastern Brown at 9 a.m. on Saturday. The Senators now 10-3. They host South Webster on Monday, which you can see on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by Ohio Health, on our YouTube page at SOSA Ohio. If you're watching this on Tuesday, probably on YouTube, go back and watch our game from last night if you didn't already watch it. If you did watch it again. Thank you for the views. Then it doesn't get any easier as they go to Wheelersburg on Thursday as well, which I think I may be at that game.
Yeah, some big SOC 3 girls matchups. I'll be honest, I wasn't totally listening to when you were talking, but also
I wouldn't listen either.
Also Monday night is Minford and Minford and Wheelersburg. Did
Yeah.
you mention that? Okay, I just wanted to. I was like reading over.
Yeah, like normally we would have gone over that game, but since this show is on Tuesday, we don't need to. And then lastly, some game previews for this week.
Yeah, just one big old
Yeah.
classic again. Another Shack hosted classic.
I love it.
The Winter Hoops Classic over at Eastern Brown. We made the trip over there last year, but I think this year we're gonna.
And we're unable to with some prior obligations. So, I may
A lot
go
of
down.
similar teams.
Yeah, I may go down there early. But yeah, so just kind of, it's a really well ran classic. It's over at Eastern Brown. Coach Pickerel and all those people down at Eastern do a great job running it. So hopefully I can get down there to at least watch some.
Really nice hospitality room.
Yes.
Some snappy. What was it? Snappy tomato.
Snappy tomato. Yeah. And it's one of those really well ran classics that they do. It starts in the morning. I'll just list the games in order.
Another 8-gamer.
Yeah, Minford against McLean. So 10-3 Minford against 7-6 McLean. Starts off the day 5-7 Eastern Brown versus 4-10 Rock Hill. Will be second. Hey, shout out to Coach Pickerel not scheduling himself with the 9 a.m. game this year because they played 9 a.m. last year. Yeah,
and that's surprising because a lot of the times the host school plays
it was a
last.
late game. Yeah, so maybe that just so they can get help throughout the day. Or have help at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So then the third game will be 11-2 Jackson against 4-8 Fairfield, who I do feel like is better than their record, but at the same time that feels like the first kind of mismatch in there. Then you've got 13-1 Fairland against 11-3 Goshen. Goshen plays in a bigger league, but I feel like that's going to be a Fairland.
Fairland played Country Day last year.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Goshen. Who did Goshen play?
Wheelersburg.
Oh, Wheelersburg, and then. What was
it? Jackson.
Jackson played Goshen because that was one of the games we saw.
Wheelersburg play Western Brown.
I think Jackson lost to Western Brown,
there you go.
and then Wheelersburg played Goshen.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Wheelersburg. It was Portsmouth West, wasn't it?
I don't know.
All right,
we don't have a cool doc saying what games we did last year like we do this year.
Jibs, and I'll
punch you in the face here in a minute.
and I'll look it up.
So then next is 10-3 North Adams against 9-2 Cincinnati Country Day. It was Lynchburg that played Country Day in the state semifinal in soccer, and then the last 2 years. Well, they played in the regional final this year, but state semifinal last year. So North Adams nearly played them in soccer. So a lot of the same kids are on that Country Day team. Then Chillicothe plays 7-5 Fayetteville Perry. 7-4 Wheelersburg plays 9-3 Bellbrook, and then the night finishes with 9-2 Peoples taking on the 8-5 Mason County Countiers because I didn't look up their mascot.
Oh, so yeah, Fairland and it was Fairland and Cincinnati Country Day, Wheelersburg, Goshen, Jackson, and Western Brown. Were the three we did.
Yeah, that's what you get for questioning me. Mason County's the Royals.
Well, because West played somebody before the Fairland game.
Yeah, they played first, like right before we got there, and I think they won that one pretty easy. But so Mason County Royals, not the best mascot because you've got the Nighthawks of Cincinnati Country Day.
They didn't used to be that, did they?
No, I'm sure they were something kind of iffy that they had to change. I won't look it up though. I did student teaching at Bellbrook, so there's
there
that.
You go.
Yeah,
where's that at?
Over in the Dayton-ish area. It's nice little area. That was the first place I ever saw an ankle tracking monitor for
A person?
Yeah, for like parole instances.
Was it a player?
Oh no, it was like a 6th grade girl. Yeah.
God.
Probably ran away a lot. Yeah.
All right. You got anything else extra to add?
How terrible. How mean would a student section be if a player's playing with an ankle tracker on?
Like Contavious Caldwell Pope.
Did he play with one on?
Mm-hmm. He could only. It was like
I knew he could only.
It was like bronze first year. He could only play in home games.
Yeah, I knew that part, but that's
he had an
hilarious.
ankle monitor on.
That makes me happy.
All right, well.
Get out and watch some games this week.
Yeah. Do you have anything else extra to add? We got the full Nuggie collection. Probably going to have to put something in this slot at some point. Maybe we can get like a Chief Crazy Horse bobblehead or something.
Or we could bring out the one pony, whatever Yasiel Puig was.
Oh, crazy or wild horse.
Yeah.
I think. I have that one.
I do too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, someone got it for me.
We could. Oh, did I?
Yeah, he gave it to me.
Oh, I didn't know.
That's one of the ones I have.
Fix his hat. There you go. Make sure Uptown Mo's looking clean with his bushy eyebrows.
Don't knock him.
There we go. All right. Well, we got a game to go to.
Yes, sir.
Here in about 15 minutes. So I think that'll do it for today's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.